Minglawa, and welcome to online videos Myanmar Today. I'm Michelle with the recent news and reports from around Myanmar. Soyna got the latest reports on reported cases, mostly from people contacting with positive patients. David and Mimeno will give us all the details on MoHS imposes stay-at-home order on 7 townships of Yangon. Wilson has the story on UEC to closely observe possible spread of COVID-19 for general election. Wilson has the full story on less rain brings worries to farmers. All of these reports will be coming up on Myanmar Today, but for now, let's take a look at what's happening in local news. Union Minister for Health and Sports Dr. Myanmar Today on Wednesday attended the daily meeting on the spread of COVID-19 disease prevention, control, and treatment. At the meeting in Naypyidaw, the Union Minister stressed the importance of the daily meeting on data sharing, review, discussion, and suggestion. He also called for the continuation of medical aid supply to regions and states and of contact between the central level officials and the ground teams. Attendees also discussed spread of the disease, rate of infection, quarantine measures, treatment, and research and suggestions. The Ministry of Transport and Communications held a meeting to design a roadmap for the development of the logistics sectors in Myanmar, organized a coordinating committee in collaboration with the relevant ministries and private organizations related to the logistics sectors, and to revise their appropriate regulations and facilitation of their logistics activities on Wednesday. At the meeting, Union Minister U Tan Srin said that the Ministry of Transport and Communications is making concerted efforts for the development of logistics sector, and the National Logistics Master Plan has been drawn up with the support from the Japan International Cooperation Agency, with the aim of developing national-level supporting activities. He also added, only through good cooperation between the government and the private sector can there be developed logistics services for economic growth. Dr. Myoe A, Director of Transport Planning Department, explained the National Logistics Master Plan, while the private organizations in the logistics sector discuss work related to the National Logistics Master Plan from their relevant sector. An All Nippon Airways relief flight brought 143 Myanmar citizens from Narita International Airport in Japan and landed at Yangon International Airport on Thursday evening. The Ministry of Labor, Immigration and Population, the Ministry of Health and Sports, and the local officials helped the returnees for health inspections and arranged for a 21-day quarantine. To bring back the Myanmar citizens who were stranded in foreign countries by relief flights and charter flights, in accordance with the instructions of National Level Central Committee on Prevention and Control of COVID-19. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs cooperated with the relevant ministries and Myanmar embassy from the respective countries. A total of 6 relief flights have been organized between Myanmar and Japan to date. Disaster Management Department under the Ministry of Social Welfare, Relief and Resettlement is implementing the preparation measures for disaster risk reduction. The department is carrying out the task in line with the 8 objectives for the rehabilitation process before, during, and after the disaster. As part of the project, a school-cum-shelter was under construction in Mingla downtown village of Didier Township in Phabong district of Ayari region. Assistant Director, Phabong District Disaster Management Department, Mo Naitun said, quote, 75% of constructing the school cum-shelter project was completed so far. This project is being implemented under 8 objectives for the rehabilitation process when the disaster comes. We mainly target to provide livelihood matters followed by health and education sector. So this project is being implemented under school cum-shelter title, end quote. The shelter was constructed with 265 million kyat, allotted budget from the Fund of National Disaster Management Committee. That's all with the local news. Now we'll move on to our first report. Since the beginning period of COVID-19, the government has been carrying out the contact tracing plans. The reported cases in Myanmar are increasing with high speed, starting from 16 August. The Department of Medical Research and the Department of Public Health have been contacting the persons who had traveled to and from Rakhine State.
The government has been carrying out the contact tracing plans ever since the beginning period of COVID-19. The virus was under a largely control in Myanmar with the use of strategies till 16th August with no locally transmitted cases. Currently, the reported cases in Myanmar are increasing with high speed within 19 days, starting from 16th August, when the resurgence of COVID-19 occurred in Myanmar. On some days, the reported cases reach even 200 with at least 10 reported cases each day. Among the reported cases after 16th August, nearly 50% was infected because they had contacts with the positive patients, and about 20% was infected because they had travel history to towns in Rakhine State. According to the data released by the Ministry of Health and Sports, there are altogether 5,409 persons who have traveled to and from Rakhine State between 10th and 21st August. The Department of Medical Research contacted 3,152 persons, and the Department of Public Health contacted 2,257 who had traveled to and from Rakhine State between 10th and 15th of August and 16th and 21st August respectively. The data showed that among the contacted persons who traveled to and from Rakhine State, at the Department of Medical Research, 782 persons informed to the nearest medical centers, and 661 persons have been involved in the quarantining processes. At the Department of Public Health, 520 persons informed to the nearest medical centers, and 481 persons have been involved in the quarantining processes. Dr. Situlin, specialist from Yangon Workers Hospital, said.
We expected this situation because firstly, the mutation of the virus makes the infection 10 times faster than before. Secondly, people's awareness on prevention against the virus becomes lesser. So we can say that people lost in a competition between the virus and the people. The situation is unpredictable because coronavirus is new for us. And also there can be mutation, so it is hard for us to say exactly. That is why just because of the low death rate in Myanmar doesn't mean that people shouldn't be cautious. People with strong immunity have low possibility in the infection, but people with chronic diseases and aged people should be aware of the virus more.
The resurgence of the COVID-19 from Rakhine State has spread all around the country, including Yangon region, which has highest population in the country, with more than 400 reported cases. Rakhine State and Yangon region are still the highest in infection rate. Yangon Township is one of the townships where stay-at-home orders are imposed. Une Phonglet, regional representative from Yangon Township constituency 1 said.
Streets in this township are partially in lockdown, like people have to register at the entrance gates whenever they go to somewhere or get back from somewhere. We only allow people who are currently working and the people who would like to buy groceries, and only one person is allowed to go out. These processes are currently being undertaken. There were 19 persons who traveled back from Rakhine State last week, and we arranged them for the stay at the quarantine centers. The administrative offices are keeping eyes on the residents, but sometimes we can't know in details. So I would like to suggest that people should inform to the nearest medical centers if there were people who traveled to and from the Rakhine State.
Kona U, a resident from Line Township, said.
Because
of this global pandemic, economic, social, and political matters are suspended. Especially, our health matters most. Everyone should follow the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and Sports by washing hands, wearing masks, and following social distancing. And we have to follow the rules strictly. And as a result, we can overcome this situation.
To control the serious outbreak of COVID-19 outbreak in the country, the government is announcing that travelers to and from Rakhine State to inform the nearest medical centers with the cooperation of the public and the government can together overcome this coronavirus disease.
That's a report on reported cases, mostly from people contacting with positive patients. As the resurgence of COVID-19 pandemic has occurred with the new cases in Yangon that don't have any travel history nor contact with the infected patients, Ministry of Health and Sports urgently imposed stay-at-home plans on 7 townships in Yangon.
Ministry of Health and Sports imposed stay-at-home plans on 7 townships of Yangon, including Dinganjo, Insane, North Oklapa, Takita, Lai, Pazundao, and Mingladon, starting from 8 a.m. of 2nd September. According to the Ministry of Health and Sports, they have reported more new cases in Yangon that don't have any travel history nor contact with the infected patients. They have imposed stay-at-home plans on some townships of Yangon in order to control the spread of COVID-19 effectively. In Yangon, most of the cases were found in Dinganjon Township. Ministry of Health and Sports stated that people who lived in these 7 townships will stay at home except going to work, and only 1 person from a household will be allowed to go grocery shopping. 2 people from a household will be going to the clinic if necessary. People must wear masks when going out. Only permitted vehicles, those who serve their duties, will be allowed. A driver and only 1 person will be allowed in the vehicle for shopping. A driver and 2 persons will be allowed in the vehicle when going to the clinic. Actions will be taken under the law to those who don't follow the rules. Dr. Tan Aiso, Director of Health and Knowledge Promotion Division from Ministry of Health and Sports, spoke to MI Radio about current situation in Myanmar.
We have to control this situation our best. Right now, we can see the mutation of the coronavirus, which is 10 times faster in spreading than before in Myanmar, and there are a lot of new cases who don't have travel history and any close contact with infected patients. We need to stay at home, and even if we have to go outside, we must wear masks and wash our hands frequently. The government has issued stay-at-home order in some townships, but all people still have to care about ourselves and follow the rules announced by the MoHS.
Uchijoton, regional representative from Lai Township constituency, once said.
Stay at home,
we are informing people about stay-at-home plan as soon as the government announced it. We notifying people in the market that only 1 person from a household will be allowed to go shopping, and we need to wear masks whenever going out. We have contacted the relevant authorities to take action in each section. As the suspected patients are getting increased, quarantine centers are full, and we are working on opening more quarantine centers in the future. We have already overcome the early period of the virus spread, so we need to make good use of that experience to endure this situation. And people seem to be more aware of the situation this time. We can't afford to keep people in the quarantine center, so we took swab samples from those who came back from Rakhine State and put them under home quarantine. We need people to cooperate with us so that we can make sure that everything is under control.
The locally transmitted patients were reported 16th of August in Rakhine State, and the government has placed stay-at-home plan to Rakhine State on 26th August. According to MoHS, there are over 5,000 people who had traveled to Rakhine State from 10th of August to 21st of August by plane. They urge the people who travel to Rakhine State from 10th of August must contact the authorities. U Ji-wen, the owner of Sri Kaunjue restaurant in Lai Township, spoke to MI Radio about how they maintain the restaurant during this pandemic.
There
are 2 parts in the re-establishment of the restaurants. The first one is about the employees. We take temperatures of our employees 2 times in a day. We won't let them work if they have fever. We make sure that they went to the clinic. We make sure that our employee wear mask and face shield. We take the temperature of our customers and make sure that they will wash their hands and wear masks. In our restaurants, the tables are kept 6 feet apart and the partitions are placed between the tables. Both our employees and customers need to follow the instructions announced by MoHS.
When the COVID-19 outbreak started in Myanmar, 10 townships from Yangon region, 1 township from Sakhan region were under stay-at-home. There isn't any local transmission since May, and the government has reduced the restrictions step by step, including easing all stay-at-home orders. However, with the resurgence of the local transmission, the government issued stay-at-home orders for the second time.
That's a report on MoHS imposes stay-at-home order on 7 townships of Yangon. Stay with us as we bring you more reports on Myanmar Today. As Myanmar is set to hold general election in 2020 amid the ongoing COVID-19, the Union Election Commission stated it is working closely with the Ministry of Health and Sport for better preparation. However, if the domestic infection is back to increasing, UEC will announce any big change in election. Wilson has the full report.
Myanmar is one of the countries among many other countries which is set to hold general election in the year 2020 amid the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. The Union Election Commission is working closely with the Ministry of Health and Sports in observing the resurgence of COVID-19 infection in Myanmar. Although there was quite a long time when there was no domestic transmission, by the end of August, once again the domestic transmission had spread in different parts of Myanmar. Therefore, as the country is set to cast votes on 8th of November, the resurgence of COVID-19 has become the main challenge for further progress. The Union Election Commission, which held a press conference on 2nd of August at its head office in Naypyidaw, stated that the Commission will announce any major changes in the general election in October. U Myan Nai, a member of Union Election Commission, said,
We closely work together with the Ministry of Health and Sports very frequently. However, for the best outcomes in this general election, where the voters will be able to cast their votes properly without any fear of the infection, we have taken the example of other countries which held the general election during the crisis like this, such as Singapore and the Republic of Korea. First of all, we have increased the number of voting places to make the process compatible with COVID-19 protection guidelines. Initially, we arranged for the voting places around 40,000, and now we have increased the numbers about 1,000 new places. At the same time, we are also collaborating with the state-owned media platforms where we broadcast by illustration on how to cast the vote during this pandemic and keep social distancing. We are preparing all the necessary equipment such as hand wash basins. We have the volunteers, voters, and those who observe the voting, and we have to make arrangement for this huge number of people. Therefore, we are closely collaborating with the Ministry of Health and Sports.
The preparation is not only for voting day, which is on 8th of November, but it also includes how the candidates can launch their political campaigns, whether it may be door-to-door campaign in the hall or in the field or while using the vehicles. All this will be informed to the related people soon, according to the statement released by UEC. Speaking further on if the general election will go well or not as the domestic transmission of the virus has once again increased, U Myan Nai also said,
We will continue to observe the situation till the month of October and decide what we should do next. We will announce the plan in October if we are to postpone the general election or not.
The Union Election Commission has already released all the Lotto representative candidates. There are 1,934 candidates which will compete for Pidu Lotto, 976 for Amuda Lotto, 3,847 for state and regional Lottos, 212 candidates for ethnic affairs minister posts, which make a total of 6,969 candidates for 2020 general election, which were all approved by UEC.
That's a report on UEC to closely observe possible spread of COVID-19 for general election. Due to late and less rainfall in this year, many of farmers worry that their harvest of the crops may not be productive and face a loss. However, for now, the farmers are dependent on the water from the dam, but the dam may not provide water for long if the rainfall is less. As the time of rice bearing is coming, the fields need more water than usual time. Wilson has the full report from Naypyidaw.
The year 2020 has been a tough year for the people around the world with the outbreak of COVID-19 at the same time worsening the global economy as a whole. But for the farmers here in Myanmar, it is not just the outbreak of COVID-19. Less rainfall in this year also another rough challenge for them, as the farmers are depending on the amount of rainfall for their cultivation. If the rainfall doesn't reach the expected number, then it is worrisome for the farmer in general. For the year 2020, as the monsoon has set in late and less rainfall, most of the farmers were not able to cultivate their farming on time, which means it may probably affect the harvest in general. U Tin Min is one of the farmers who is the resident of the Yangon village of Zabutiri township, spoke to my radio and said,
ဒီနေ့ကတော့ကလုတ်ကရက်နဲ့ပဲပြီးတာပါပဲလေဟာပေါ့မိုးကစိုက်ချိန်ကမဲက
Due to bad weather and less rainfall in this year, I had to do the cultivation in a hurry. As the rainfall was less and late, I had to do the cultivation on my own. But I have franchised the field with a company where, according to the contract, the seed to be cultivated is provided by the company. So I cultivate what I'm given, maintain the field, which is about 3 acres. When the time comes from the harvest, the company will come and do the harvest on their own. I will get the money for rice harvest from my 3 acres fields. However, I'm afraid that this year crops may not yield as much as it used to be due to less and late rainfall where the cultivation was obviously late as well.
Many of the farmers in this village have signed a contract with the company where the company repays the farmers in cash depending on the size of the field they own. It is said that the farmers will usually get about 800,000 kyat for an acre, but the company will only provide the seed to cultivate. The farmers have to cultivate and maintain the field for better harvest, as the payment also depends on how many baskets of rice an acre can produce. Doi Yingwen is another farmer who also has about 7 acres of fields which are all contracted to the company, and she spoke to my radio on the benefits of contracted rice farming for the farmers, and she said,
Contract farming is quite beneficial to the farmers like us because we are giving the paddy seeds for free. We don't have to manage for that by ourselves. At the same time, the company will do the harvest part, which means all harvest-related tasks will be done by the company. We also get the money just for seeding, as it also takes a lot of labor work. In the harvest time, we don't have to clean and dry the rice by ourselves.
As rainfall in this year cannot give enough water to the farmers have to depend on alternative water source for their agriculture means. For now, they are getting the water from small dam, but this dam will not be able to provide water for long, as it is also very much dependent on the amount of rainfall. Less rainfalls mean less water to store in the dam. For now, the water is being collected at night and is released to the farms in daytime. As this is the time the rice are about to have its bearings, the rice need more water than the usual time. But due to less water, the farmers are quite worried for less productive harvest for this year.
That's a report on less rain brings worries to farmers. And that's all we have for today's report. And it's time to check on some international news here on Myanmar Today. According to a survivor rescued by the country's Coast Guard, a cargo ship carrying 43 crew and about 6,000 count sank at sea after transmitting a distress signal during a typhoon off Japan. The Gulf Livestock One issued a distress call early Wednesday from a position 185 kilometers, 150 miles west of Japan's Amami Oshima Island. Late Wednesday, Coast Guard rescuers located one survivor, a man identified as 45-year-old Filipino chief officer, who said he had put on a life jacket and dived into the sea after warning announcement on board. The Coast Guard said in a statement that one of the boat's engine had stuck and wave upturned the ship, which later sank, the Coast Guard said in a statement. There were no details on when and where the ship sank, but the man said he had not seen other crew members while waiting to be rescued. The Chinese Foreign Ministry had said it will make legitimate responses to the Trump administration's latest restrictions on Chinese development, citing security reasons. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying denounced the decision as irrational and delusional. The U.S. side has imposed fresh restrictions and barriers on Chinese diplomats in the U.S., and such behavior seriously violated international law and rules, and it seriously interrupts normal bilateral interactions and exchange, Hua said at a daily briefing on Thursday. Chinese diplomats working in the United States will now be required to get approval before visiting local universities or hosting cultural events with groups over 50 outside missions grounds, according to U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
美国国务院去年10月、今年6月
In October last year and June this year, the U.S. State Department made new requirements twice on the activities of Chinese diplomats and consular personnel in the U.S. This time, it has introduced more requirements and has even restricted personal and social contacts with local U.S. officials. This is a complete violation of international law, basic international relations, and the guidelines of China-U.S. consular treaties. We urge the U.S. State Department to immediately revoke this erroneous decision, stop obstructing normal personnel exchanges between the two countries, and stop disrupting bilateral relations. China will respond accordingly.
Heavy winds and rain lashed much of the Korean peninsula Thursday after Typhoon Maysak made landfall, even as damage from a previous typhoon last week was still being repaired, and a third typhoon gathered strength off the coast. Maysak, the ninth of season and the fourth to hit the peninsula this year, was among the strongest to strike Korea in years, and is expected to affect most of DPRK and South Korea. According to the Weather Agency and the Interior Ministry, some areas on the southern resort island of Jeju reported more than 1,000 millimeters in rainfall since Tuesday, and the typhoon left some 120,000 households without power across the country. Hundreds of flights were cancelled and delayed, and the southern city of Busan in South Korea saw heavy winds as storms tracked place squarely in its path. And that's all we have for today. Thank you very much for joining me on Myanmar Today. I'm Michelle. Have a good day. I'll see you next time.